She thought I was just a useless old woman and kicked me out of my own son's wedding. But what my daughter-in-law didn't know was that I kept a leather folder in the attic that would destroy her life in 15 minutes. Here is how I unmasked Connecticut's biggest con artist at the altar in front of the entire high society. Please, sit here with me. Grab a cup of tea or perhaps something stronger, because what I have to tell you isn't just a story of betrayal. It's a warning. My name is Martha. I'm 68 years old, and I spent my entire life believing that silence was a virtue. I live here in Greenwich, Connecticut, where the white picket fences are spotless and secrets are buried deeper than the roots of century-old oaks. But what happened on the eve of my only son Thomas's wedding changed everything. Have you ever felt the ground vanish beneath your feet? Have you ever looked into the eyes of someone you welcomed as a daughter and seen only the void of a wicked soul? Well, take a good look at this face. These wrinkles aren't just signs of aging. They are scars from a battle I almost lost. I raised Thomas alone after my husband passed away, working in 2 libraries to ensure he had the best. He was my world. And then Vanessa appeared, young, blonde, with a smile that seemed to light up our elite's gala halls. But to me, it always felt as cold as the marble gravestones at Putnam Cemetery. On the night of the rehearsal dinner, the air was heavy. The aroma of lobsters and expensive wines filled the beachfront mansion we had rented. I was in the kitchen, just getting a glass of water, trying to calm the tightness in my chest that I called intuition. But my son called motherly jealousy. That's when she walked in. Vanessa didn't come to talk. She came to mark her territory. She got so close I could smell her perfume. Something too sweet, sickening. She looked me in the eyes without a trace of that fake sweetness she showed the guests, and said words that still echo like breaking glass in my mind. Enjoy this wine, Martha, because tomorrow after I say I do at the altar, you will no longer be part of this family. I'm going to make sure Thomas sees you as the bitter, crazy old woman you've become. You're out. My heart raced. My hands shook so much I almost dropped the crystal. I wasn't just a mother-in-law being rejected. I was being banished from my own son's life by the woman he swore to love. Her psychological abuse began there, raw and naked. She knew I was a widow, that he was my only link to the world. But what that 26-year-old girl didn't know, what she never even suspected, is that librarians are great at one thing: finding buried secrets. I spent decades organizing archives, and Martha is not a woman who goes down without a fight. As she walked upstairs with a victorious smile, I remembered the leather folder I had found in the attic of our old Cape Cod summer house weeks earlier. A folder Vanessa thought I'd never find. There, hidden among old certificates, was a photo. A photo of Vanessa 5 years ago, with a different name and a man who today is on the most wanted list for financial fraud. The tension in that house was unbearable. I looked at my son, Thomas, laughing with his friends, unaware he was about to hand his life over to a predator. I felt the weight of injustice. Why do good people suffer while manipulators smile? I wanted to scream, to rip off her veil right then and there. But I learned that revenge, like a fine Connecticut wine, should be served at the right temperature. With every passing minute at that party, I saw a new manipulation. She whispered in his ear, pointed at me, and he looked at me with pity, or worse, irritation. The antagonist wasn't just her, it was his blindness. I was alone in that crowded room, abandoned before the wedding even happened. But the first real conflict was just beginning. I decided I wouldn't go to the wedding, but I wouldn't stay silent. Can you imagine the pain of a mother who realizes her son is the target of a scam, but he's so enchanted that he hates you for trying to help him? I went back home that night, the lights of the Verrazzano Bridge shining in the distance, and opened that folder again. I needed definitive proof, and I found it. A second marriage certificate that was never annulled. Vanessa was already married. Her plan was simple: marry the heir to an old fortune, drain the accounts in 6 months, and disappear. But she chose the wrong family. She chose the wrong mother. I stayed up all night, tears drying on my face, turning into cold determination. I am no longer just Grandma Martha. I am the woman who will protect what remains of my lineage, whatever the cost. That dawn in Connecticut was the longest of my life. I watched the grandfather clock in the living room tick every second. a dry sound that felt like a judge's gavel. I, Martha, the woman everyone saw as the docile mother-in-law, was about to detonate a bomb in the heart of Greenwich high society. But before I tell you what I did with that leather folder, I need you to understand the level of Vanessa's cruelty. On the morning of the wedding, the sun rose bright, reflecting off the waters of the Long Island Sound. It was a perfect day for a crime. The phone rang at 8 a.m. It was Thomas. His voice was heavy with guilt. He tried to hide with irritation. "Mom, Vanessa told me you were upset last night, that you said horrible things to her about her past. She's crying, Martha. Why can't you just be happy for me?" Those words were like knives. She had already made her move. She flipped the game, turning my discovery into the delusions of a possessive old woman. I took a deep breath, feeling the tears sting, but I didn't let one fall. "Thomas, I just want you to be happy. I won't go to the wedding so I don't cause more stress for your bride." He sighed, a mix of relief and disappointment. "Maybe it's for the best, Mom. We'll talk after the honeymoon." He hung up. He chose her. He banished me from what should have been the happiest day of his life. But what he didn't know was that I was already on the road. I wasn't going to St. Mary's Church. I was heading to the office of an old friend, a retired private detective who owed me a favor from the days I helped him research genealogical records at the library. I needed one final confirmation. As I drove down the Merritt Parkway, I saw luxury cars heading toward the party. Everyone laughing, everyone elegant, unaware that happily ever after was a financial execution contract. My friend, old Frank, was waiting for me with a manila envelope. "Martha, you're playing with fire," he said, handing me the papers. "This woman, Vanessa, or rather Victoria St. James, as she was called in Chicago, is a pro. She's done this 3 times. Quick weddings, accidental deaths of elderly husbands, or divorces with aggressive settlement clauses. And she never acts alone. There's an accomplice." My blood ran cold. An accomplice? Frank pointed to a grainy photo of a man posing as Vanessa's brother on the guest list. "Uncle Mark. I saw him last night at the rehearsal dinner. He wasn't her brother. He was the mastermind. The scheme was bigger than I imagined. They didn't just want Thomas's money. They wanted control of the properties my husband left in a trust fund that would only be released after the marriage. I went home and looked in the mirror. I didn't recognize that 68-year-old woman with eyes of fire. I put on my best navy blue silk set, the same one I would have worn if I were at the altar next to him. But I wasn't going to the altar. I was going to the central registry and then to the police station. Meanwhile, the clock ticked on. It was 11 a.m. The ceremony would start at noon. I started receiving messages from friends at church. "Martha, where are you?" Thomas looked so nervous. Vanessa looked stunning, like an angel. A fallen angel, I thought. I prepared 3 envelopes. One for Thomas, one for the officiant, and one for the official event photographer, a young man I knew who owed me for the recommendation for that job. I made one last call. "Is it ready?" I asked. The answer on the other end was short. "Yes, Mrs. Martha, in position." I sat on my porch, looking at the garden my husband and I tended for 40 years. I felt an immense loneliness, but also a strange peace. Betrayal hurts, but clarity is liberating. Vanessa thought I was a disposable piece on her board. She forgot that, in a game of chess, the queen is the most powerful piece, and I had lived through moves she hadn't even begun to learn. The climax at the altar. It was 11:45 a.m. The Connecticut sun shone with cruel irony on the church's stained glass. I could imagine the scene. Thomas, my son, standing at the altar in his tailored gray suit, adjusting his tie every 5 seconds, his eyes fixed on the door, waiting for the woman he believed was his soulmate. And Vanessa, oh, she must have been radiant in her $30,000 French lace dress, paid for with the hard-earned reserve fund of our family. But I wasn't there to see it. I was in my car, a few blocks away, watching everything through the reflection of the rearview mirror. My gift had already been delivered. About 10 minutes before the wedding march began, my contact, the young photographer, received a sealed envelope with very specific instructions. Replace the couple's retrospective slides with the content of this flash drive 5 minutes into the ceremony. He hesitated, I know, but when I told him it would save Thomas's life, he understood the gravity. The music started. I closed my eyes and could almost hear the organ. Vanessa walked toward my son, flashing practiced smiles at the local elite. Uncle Mark, her accomplice, was in the front row, watching every move like a wolf in sheep's clothing. They thought they had won. They thought old Martha was at home, crying over a photo album. But every 3 or 4 minutes, as I planned, a new domino began to fall. At the altar, the officiant began the traditional speech. That's when the sound system and the giant screens in the church, installed so everyone could see the beauty of the couple, came to life. But it wasn't childhood photos of Thomas or romantic trips to Paris. The first image that appeared was Victoria St. James's marriage record from Chicago, dated just 2 years ago. The groom's name? Uncle Mark himself, who was actually her husband and partner in fraud. A murmur of shock ran through the oak pews. Thomas turned pale. He looked at Vanessa, expecting an explanation. But she, with a coldness only psychopaths possess, tried to laugh. "It's a mistake, Thomas. Someone hacked the system. Someone wants to destroy us." But I didn't stop there. The next slide wasn't a photo. It was audio. The recording I made in the kitchen the night before, clear as day. "Tomorrow, after I say I do, you will no longer be part of this family. I'm going to make sure Thomas sees you as the bitter, crazy old woman you've become." Vanessa's voice echoed through the church nave, unmasking the villain in front of all her influential guests. Her porcelain mask finally cracked. I saw, through the video the photographer was streaming live to my phone, the exact moment my son woke from the trance. He no longer saw the perfect bride. He saw the woman who tried to destroy his own mother. The conflict exploded. Uncle Mark tried to rush forward to turn off the equipment, but Frank, my detective friend, and 2 undercover officers I had contacted were already blocking the exits. Vanessa's humiliation was complete, but my son's pain was just beginning. He fell to his knees at the altar, face in his hands. I started the car engine. It was time for my entrance. Not as the banished guest, but as the guardian who returned to pick up the pieces. I parked in front of the church just as the guests began to pour out, stunned. Vanessa was escorted out, not by bridesmaids, but by court officers. As she passed me, she tried to lunge, her eyes bloodshot with rage. "You destroyed my life, you cursed old woman," she screamed. I just looked her up and down, with the calmness of someone with a clear conscience, and replied, "I didn't destroy anything, Vanessa. You destroyed yourself when you forgot that a mother never stops fighting for her son. Now get out of my town." The aftermath and the final truth. The silence that followed the chaos at St. Mary's was deafening. Greenwich seemed to hold its breath. I entered the empty nave, where only the scent of white flowers, which now looked like funeral wreaths, remained. Thomas was sitting on the first step of the altar, his tuxedo disheveled, head down. I approached slowly. My shoes echoed on the marble. I wanted to run and hug him, but I knew that to him, I was now the mirror of his own blindness. When he looked up, I didn't see anger. I saw a shame so deep he could barely hold my gaze. "Mom," he whispered, his voice choking up. "How could I be so stupid? I kicked you out of my life because of a criminal." I sat beside him, ignoring the pain in my 68-year-old back. "Thomas, love isn't stupid. It just makes us want to believe in the light, even when the darkness is right in front of us." She was a professional. She was trained to deceive good men like you. But what happened next was what truly broke my heart. Thomas pulled a document from his jacket pocket. It was a letter of intent Vanessa had made him sign the night before, under the pretext of it being a romantic surprise. It was a request for the total transfer of our family's property custody to a holding company based in the Cayman Islands. Vanessa didn't just want the money, she wanted to leave us on the street with nothing. But the blow was even dirtier. Thomas looked at me with red eyes and said, "She told me you were sick, Mom. She showed me fake exams saying you had early onset dementia. She said your aggressive behavior toward her was the first sign. And that to protect you, I needed to sign these papers so she could manage your finances while I worked. I signed because I thought I was saving you." A glacial chill ran down my spine. That woman's psychological abuse knew no bounds. She didn't just try to push me away. She tried to invalidate me as a human being, using my son's love as a weapon. That was the moment I realized the battle hadn't ended with her arrest. As we walked out of the church, Detective Frank approached with a serious look. "Martha, we have a problem. We searched the hotel room where Uncle Mark was staying. He fled before the police arrived, and he took something." My heart stopped. "What did he take, Frank?" "Your family's jewelry box, the one you took to the bank vault yesterday afternoon. But it seems Vanessa had a copy of the key. Those jewels weren't just gold and precious stones. They were my grandmother's legacy, the engagement ring my husband gave me before we moved into our first home in Cape Cod. It was the only tangible thing I had left of my history before the pain. Vanessa and Mark didn't just want my son's future. They wanted to steal my past." I looked at Thomas. He was devastated, but something changed in his gaze. He saw the strength I had to save him, and for the first time in years, he stood up not as the deceived boy, but as a man ready to fight for his mother. "We're going to find him, Mom, I swear." But I, with the wisdom of someone who has lived 68 years, knew Mark wasn't the only accomplice. At the bottom of that transfer letter, there was a witness signature I recognized immediately. It was the signature of a close friend of our family, someone I had trusted for decades. The betrayal was inside my own home, sitting at my dinner table. But they forgot one detail. I am Martha, and I never leave a book unread until the end, especially when the chapter is about revenge. We left that church with the weight of 1,000 years on our shoulders. Thomas insisted on taking me home, but my destination was elsewhere. I needed to look into the eyes of the person who helped put my son on a silver platter for wolves. "Thomas, go to the station with Frank." "I need to stop by Diane's house," I said, my voice firmer than I felt inside. Diane had been my best friend since high school. When I arrived at her mansion in Riverside, the silence was suspicious. I walked in without knocking. I found her in the living room, sipping a martini with a calmness that made me nauseous. "Martha, what a tragedy what happened at the church," she began, with a fake compassion that made me lose my patience. I threw the copy of the document on the coffee table. "Your signature is here, Diane, as a witness to a robbery, as an accomplice to a criminal who tried to commit your best friend to a sanitarium to steal her estate." "Why?" Diane's face changed. The mask of the perfect Connecticut neighbor melted, revealing an envy that had been fermenting for years. "Estate, Martha? You were always the perfect one. The librarian with the devoted husband, the brilliant son, the untouched properties. While I lost everything at the Atlantic City casinos and watched my husband trade me for a 20-year-old, Vanessa offered me a percentage. She said you wouldn't even notice, that you'd be drugged in a rest clinic in no time. The betrayal of a stranger hurts, but that of a soul sister is a poison that paralyzes." But I wasn't there to cry. "Where is Mark, Diane? And where are my family's jewels?" She laughed, a dry, desperate sound. "He's no fool, Martha. He's probably already on his way to JFK Airport. But he didn't go to Chicago. They have a hideout in a cabin I rented for them in my name in the Berkshire Mountains. He thought I'd go with him. He used me as much as he used you. That was my turning point. Diane, in her fury as a woman rejected by an accomplice who abandoned her, gave me the exact location. I didn't call the police immediately. I called Thomas. In less than 10 minutes, he was there. The chase wasn't like in the movies. It was a tense 2-hour drive north. The sun was setting, staining the sky a bloody orange. Upon reaching the isolated cabin, we saw Mark's car. He was loading bags, the mahogany jewelry box under his arm. He thought he had won. "It's over, Mark," I said, and my voice didn't tremble. He tried to laugh, that villainous laugh of someone who thinks they are untouchable. "What are you going to do, Martha?" "I'm already on the road. Your daughter-in-law is in jail, but I'm taking the consolation prize." He moved to get into the car, but Thomas was faster. "You're not going anywhere," I announced, holding up my phone. "Diane told us everything. The Connecticut police have already tracked this car, and the FBI has been notified about Victoria St. James. You're not a criminal mastermind, Mark. You're just a thief of old women who made the mistake of entering my library." At the exact moment he tried to lunge at me, the sound of sirens began to echo through the valley. He collapsed. Thomas took the jewelry box and handed it to me. "Forgive me, Mom, for everything." I opened the box right there, under the moonlight. My grandmother's engagement ring sparkled. I didn't need forgiveness. I needed him to understand that a mother's love isn't blind. It's the only thing that sees in the dark. We returned to Greenwich transformed. Vanessa and Mark were convicted of fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Diane, the friend who betrayed me, lost her home and the respect of the town. But the biggest victory wasn't in the courts. I sold the large mansion that carried the weight of those betrayals. With the money, Thomas and I opened a foundation to help mature women suffering from financial and psychological abuse. I, Martha, at 68, discovered that my life didn't end the day I was banished from a fake wedding. It began there. Today, I sit on the porch of my new home, smaller but full of light. Thomas is in the kitchen, and we laugh at the small things. Overcoming isn't forgetting what happened, but using the scars to draw a new map. To you listening to me, never underestimate a woman who knows who she is. Your past is not a prison. It is your most powerful weapon. They tried to bury me, but they forgot I was a seed. If this story touched your heart and served as a lesson, don't leave without hitting the like button. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next stories of overcoming obstacles, and comment below with the name of your city. I want to know how far Martha's voice has reached today. Turn on notifications and visit our video tab for more real-life stories.